All right. Welcome to Screen Time with today's Communiqué. So honored to have Miss Shirlena Wright with us today, talking about being a first time author. And we're also going to be talking about and commemorating, of course, we know July is National Minority Mental Health Month, and we have the late author, B.B. Moore Campbell, to thank for that. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that, talking about writing books and all things Shirlena Wright. But before we jump in, welcome, Miss Wright. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Kenya. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So you are a first-time author. Now, before we talk about that, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career path.
So actually what most people don't know is I was actually born in Ohio. I moved to Little Rock when I was 7 years old. So it is absolutely home for me. Currently, I do live in Dallas, but since Little Rock is home, I just love going home and I'm going to start the book and everything there because that's where actually everything happened.
Absolutely. So, and plus Dallas is right down the street,
Right
relatively
down the
speaking.
street. Right down the street. And so I know you asked about my career path. Right now, the main focus for me is the book. The book itself speaks so much to so many different things, mainly regarding mental health.
Okay.
So once I started writing, I realized that I've experienced a lot of things that most people don't talk about, especially in our communities. We don't talk about those things, and so they get shoved up under a rug, and we just try to continue on with life as normal until something happens that makes us react in a way that is not normal for us, and then we realize that something needs to be fixed. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't get that in check and they don't fix it and they don't talk to people about it. So for me, once I realized that I was harboring all these things, I needed to get them out. And so writing the book was a way for me to release. But as I said, as I started writing, I realized this is a problem that we don't talk about, and we need to in order to heal one another. So pretty much mental health, helping in that mental health area is where I'm heading now.
Perfect. And thank you for mentioning that because I was going to ask you, number one, what is the title of your book? And then number two, what brought you to the point where you wanted to write a book and or needed to write a book? So talk
Oh, we're getting deep. Okay. So the name of the book is Fingertips, a mother's story of anger, faith, and resiliency. So the book itself is talking about when my son was shot at the age of 13, point blank range in the head. And where I'm explaining exactly what I was doing, what he was doing at the time, and everything that we went through during that time. His stay at Arkansas Children's Hospital, all the way up until he came home and recovered. But mainly all the emotions that I went through. Because I think when we're talking about stories such as this, we focus so much on the patient who was my son, but we don't really get into how we felt about those things. You
about.
know, sometimes when things happen, you feel a sense of responsibility because that's your child, and maybe you feel as though you shouldn't have let them go or things like that. And then once they recover, that um that I guess that uncomfortable feeling that comes with letting them go again and out of your sight. So that was something that I needed to talk about, but the book actually was written because I was having a hard time dealing with the grief of losing my mom and then 15 days later losing my stepfather. I just had no bounce back for it. And I hibernated myself in a city where I knew one person, two people actually, and I saw each one of them maybe twice, once or twice the whole entire year I was there.
Yeah.
So I had to come back to my relationship with God, of course.
Yeah.
And he reminded me of all the situations that he brought me through.
Right.
And he also assured me that this would be no different. It just was a different path than I thought that I would take. So a lot of different emotions going on there. So you have grief, you have anger. So when I wrote the book, everything flooded back.
Yeah.
And when in the book, of course, my mom and my stepdad were still alive.
Okay.
So, but in that, I saw the beauty of so many things.
Yeah.
I saw Shirlena, why she was who she was at 50. At the time I was 50, I'm 51 now. So, a lot of things that shaped me, the things that molded me into who I was then and now and who I've become. So it was life changing, really, for me to see myself as a little girl, things that happened then, the name calling, the bullying, and then growing up, just everything. I saw different attributes and different people that I never saw before, the appreciation for who they were, and sometimes just understanding why they weren't um, as I thought they should be. So it was a real eye opener. And that's why I encourage people to write, especially that about your life, because you dig deep. And yeah, you dig deep.
I'm glad you mentioned that because you talked about writing. When we go through things, there are several things that people can do to help alleviate stress, to kind of channel their mental health into other things and work on their mental health doing other things like running or maybe taking up musical instruments or exercising or art, but you chose writing. What got you to that point where you said, okay, I need to get this out? The only way I can do it is by writing. How did you get to that point?
Well, I love writing. I love writing. When my son was in the hospital, I had one of my girlfriends to bring me a journal, just a notebook, yeah, a notebook with pages in it. And at that time, to be honest with you, I was going through so many things mentally with his recovery and figuring out things. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I put that to the side. I'll be okay. I had been okay many times before. I've been in difficult situations more than my share
Right.
of times. And so this to me, I was like, I can do it. It wasn't until, like I said, something will bring you to that. Now, I love to express too. So whether it's talking, writing, whatever the case may be, I love to express. I'm going to get my point out, period. I'm just going to get it out. And I love painting the picture. So storytelling is now what it's called. So what I've learned that's what it is. So I paint the picture. And so that's something that I love to do. When I started writing, I was like, oh, well, every time you think about a situation, you remember more and more and more. And it became exciting for me to actually go back inside the room, to actually be a kid again, to actually feel my mom's hugs again,
Yeah.
to taste her cooking. I talk about cooking, my mom's cooking in the book. I could taste it. It's like being on an adventure.
Oh,
So, but it's your life that you're venturing into. So it's exciting. And I encourage people, like I said, I encourage people to do that because you'll learn so many things, so much about yourself and other people.
well, speaking about learning so many things, about learning about other people, you've written the book.
Yeah.
And I know that you came home to Little Rock rather, recently to do your book cover reveal. And at that particular event, you actually read a couple of passages to those who were in attendance. I wonder if you would treat us at this time by maybe reading a passage of the book, one that you think is probably near and dear. I know the entire book is near and dear to you, but maybe a short package that could kind of draw us in.
Okay, sure. Actually, I'm just gonna start at the top,
Okay.
because and that I'll start at the top. So when I was 10, my mother gave me my first pocket knife. She was working a night shift, and that meant I'd be home alone. You need to protect yourself, she warned, just in case. This began my love for knives. Later in my teens, Mama introduced me to guns as well. But as an adult, carrying a knife became second nature, like putting on earrings. So when the attorney called me that day with the news that shook my foundation, I put the phone down, grabbed a child-sized backpack belonging to my daughter, the one with her photo on it. Inside, I packed two things: the replica of my son's skull with a gaping hole caused by a bullet, and my weapon of choice. I snapped. I knew I was going to jail for life today for the results of what I'd done, and I wanted my kids to be with me one last time. The backpack and the skull represented them in my mind. I was in a daze when I got in the car and drove through through the gate that separated my community of Otter Creek to the rest of Southwest Little Rock. It was a 10-minute drive on the freeway to my son's former middle school. I parked quickly, grabbed the backpack, hopped out of the car, and ran into the school office. I spoke to some of the people there, told them who I wanted to see, and got a visitor's pass and stormed out. The school was pretty quiet. Most of the students were either in class or in the cafeteria. I had walked these halls plenty of times before, but today, the 30 feet of hallway from the office to the classroom where I was headed seemed like the length of a football field. Shirlena, what are you doing here? I didn't even turn around, but I recognized the voice. It was Ladybug. She was the oldest sister of one of my best friends and a special ed teacher at the school. Damn, I thought as I picked up my pace. Shirlena, what are you doing here? She asked, now even louder. I didn't say a word. I am a whopping 5'3" in stature, and Ladybug is about 5'10". She's only about 4 years older than me, but that day she seemed twice my age, a real elder, and 3 times as tall. At that moment, I felt like a child. You have no business at this school, Shirlena, she shouted. What are you doing here? I stopped abruptly, turned to her face, and her eyes were squinted. She bit down over her bottom lip and tilted her head to the side as if she wanted to yank me. What's in the backpack? She asked. I looked at her. Oh, you're coming with me, she demanded, and grabbed me as if I were a kindergartner being placed in timeout. By now, we were standing in front of the teacher's lounge. She tugged me by my shirt and shoved me in the room. But once we got in, she looked around, and although there was no one else in there, she grabbed me again and pulled me out of the lounge. I got something for you, she said. The entire time I was silent. I didn't know where she was leading me, but for some reason I followed. She continued to question me, but I tuned her out. I just wanted her to finish so I could get on with my mission. I'm gonna kill that bitch today, kept repeating in my mind. The thought of murder had filled my very spirit, and nothing she could say was going to stop me. Is that enough?
Oh, yes. I'm just like goosebumps. You really had me drawn in. And so with that, I wanted to know, it brings everything to life. It's like the words that you put on paper, when you put pen to paper, it's like you really painted a picture, like you said. Writing for you is like painting a picture. And as you were reading, I was at the middle school with you. I was walking down that 30 feet with you. I was with you when Ladybug snatched you into the lounge and then snatched you out. And so, how do you, when you're going through, did you have second thoughts when you were writing this book about whether or not you should even do it, whether you could complete it? Anything come to your mind where you were like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do this? And if so, how did you get over those roadblocks?
Those are great questions. And those kind of hit home for many reasons. And yes, I did think about stopping. The book was very emotional. So when you write, you like I said, you go back there. So you relive it. And every sentence you're back there, you're reliving it, and it was hard. It was hard. Like I said, because my parents were still alive mainly. The
Right.
good part was my son was still alive. And that was something to be joyful about. And it helped me to kind of um fall back in love with God again.
Yeah.
And for what he had done for my son and for us. And because I was struggling with that, because it was like, okay, Lord, you took my mom and then you turned around 2 weeks later, you took my daddy. Like, what am I supposed to do here? And I'm an only child. So it was like, did you think about me? And
Right.
for a long time, I was upset, but he never stopped showing me his love
Mm.
when and so when I said I gotta release this, actually, one of my good friends, Sylvia Smith, she kept saying, Chirk, you need to write about it. People, they read when talking about some things that I've written on Facebook. I'm not real big on social media, but she said, people listen. We love it when you write. So I think you should just write whatever it is you want to write about. And when I decided to write about this, like I said, then the emotions came back, but then I became determined. Like, I became determined to get through this. And I felt like, okay, if I can finish this, then there would be some sort of healing process for me. And indeed, it has been a healing process for me. I so love it. And I'm just so looking forward to what it does for other people. Cause that's my thing. You know, I just hope that it helps others, because that faith the faith that you have to have in a situation like this, and as someone reads this, they'll understand that it was totally God's grace.
Mm.
And once you develop that trust again, that faith again, that God is your everything all over again, it's like rebirth. So many things came my way to try to then it was like, so many things came emotionally that made me feel like, okay, maybe I shouldn't finish this. But as I pushed through it, I felt like a champion, to be honest. Once I finished it, I was like, okay, but a lot of obstacles came in the way. And so that's when you're on the right path of something. You don't know exactly what it is, but when you start experiencing those obstacles and that pain and all that, negativity, that's when hey, this absolutely has to happen, and let me push on through and get this thing done. So that's what happened.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that because I know there may be some people who are watching that may have had some similar challenges and experiences that you have faced. And so, what words of wisdom or advice would you give to them who are going through maybe some similar challenges or their own challenges? What would you say to them?
I would say put God first, and 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 everything. No, I'm going to sound like a Bible verse, but it absolutely is true. Put God first and put pen to paper. Get your emotions out. If you're not going to, I thoroughly want you to seek help.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for us, we don't do that for some reason. And I'll stand right here and, admit that I'm not frequent with that either. What I am frequent with, though, is prayer. So, but that pen and that paper and your mind will help you get through it. It absolutely will. And so that I would encourage people to just try it, even if you're not a storyteller, because you don't have to be.
Right.
These are your emotions. As long as you get them out however you see fit, someone else can take your emotions, your story, and put it on paper the way that you actually need it to be.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, you know, seeking professional help when it is necessary and needed and not to shy away from it, because I do recall that when you were here at your book release cover release event, you gave a shout out to BB Moore Campbell, who again was instrumental in even the world acknowledging National Minority Mental Health Month. And so I'm glad that you are encouraging people, if you feel like you need to seek professional help, get professional help. Writing it out is good. But if you get to the point, or even if a loved one gets to a point where they need some additional help, then help is there and available for folks, and not to shy away from it. Because you're right, in communities of color, that's not something that we traditionally like to talk about. And so I'm glad that you, as an author, as a well-known person in the community, are advocating for something like that.
Absolutely. It is so much. It's just one of those things that we don't talk about, especially the generation before us. I think our generation became more comfortable with expressing, and so on and so forth. But our parents didn't promote us to talk about what's going on with us. So we had to hide it. And like I said, so later on in life, because I have an angry past, a really violent past, and I know now that that came from some things that happened in my childhood. Had I not written the book, I would have just thought, oh, she just, I'm just a little cuckoo. You know what I'm saying? And of course, I'm over those things now, but also some other things had to happen in my life to bring me to this point. So talking about those things to a professional can help you get to where you need to be just a little bit quicker, and I think that what happens in our community, unfortunately, because we talked the BB Moore Campbell symposium that I spoke about, I actually attended it, and there were a lot of young ladies on there speaking about how it's just not taken seriously. We're told, oh, you'll be okay. I remember that. Oh, I remember also, you'll get over it. Just get over it. And I think so much of my mom's generation was taught to just get over it, and because of what our ancestors had gone through, anything they felt like anything that you're going through can't be nearly as bad as what our ancestors endured. And I'm not going to say either way which way is right. What I am going to say is we need to talk about it, and you need to speak to someone about it. Don't shove it up under a rug. What happens happens. Your feelings are real, and they need to be, someone needs to nurture that back to it's where you're feeling good about yourself again.
Right. Absolutely. And thank you for saying that. Thank you for mentioning that, because I know folks are watching this and need someone to say, it's okay, you need to get it out. And so just by you saying that, I'm sure that that will motivate some folks who are kind of on the edge. Should I go get help? Should I not? This will give them the encouragement to do that. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, I hope so.
So the book, you're finished with the book. When can we expect it to be on bookshelves?
Okay, so I was hoping for September. It looks like it's going to be first part, middle of October. So many things go into this production, Kenya. I had no idea, but it's a wonderful ride. It's whatever you want it to be. So for some people, it may not take as long. I have a wonderful literary consultant, Patrick Oliver, who's been guiding me through this process. And because he knows the business, then he tells me every step that I need to make. And so in doing that, I would love to rush it. I want it to be out, this month. But he's like, no, we have to do this, and everything has to be in order.
Right.
So, but it doesn't have to be that way for everyone. I want this as like you said, my new career path. So it's a little different for me. I'm not just putting something out. I'm actually wanting to help others with it. So that means that I have to go through certain things before I can actually release it.
Miss Wright, thank you. Thank you for
Mhm.
being opening up and sharing with us, sharing a little piece of your story and a little piece of your journey, and encouraging us to get the help that we need if we need it, just to get it out. That will
Yeah.
make us feel so much better. So thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Oh, thank you so much again for having me, Kenya.
And with that, that's a wrap.